people are like great at just putting these blinders on. We're like, it's not affecting me. I don't want to know about it. Like that doesn't exist out there because it will ruin you. So many people are so afraid to step into that fire and they just don't prioritize it, or they don't fully know until it happens to them, until they know somebody. And then they get involved in it and then they know.
How can I help? How can I be useful in ending needless suffering? Do not be afraid of work that has no end.
We have to organize a social movement.
We have an opportunity to lead by example versus just talking, hot air.
I think the more people in this fight, the more we grow. Eventually it could change. The people are the ones that can make the change.
What's up, everybody? My name is Jesse, and I'm one of the producers on Change Agents here at IRONCLAD. And like every Wednesday, we plan to bring you a brand new episode this week where Andy was going to sit down with an agent of change. But like many people, the guest that we had scheduled for this week's episode was affected by the California wildfires and was forced to evacuate. And so we will be back next week and the coming weeks with all new episodes and conversations. But today, we did want to give a shout out to the California Fire Foundation. If you want to help those affected by these fires, particularly the people on the front lines of fighting them, check out cafirefoundation.org. They provide support and assistance to firefighters and families of firefighters on the front lines of trying to protect communities, people, and their homes. So today, instead of a brand new episode though, since we've had a lot of new people come to the show, we actually wanted to rebroadcast our very first episode, the pilot of Change Agents, which we recorded with Glenn Devitt, who at the time was the CEO of the Sentinel Foundation, an organization that to this day continues to fight child exploitation, human trafficking, and bringing those responsible to justice. In the interview, you'll hear Glenn talk about his background at the Department of Homeland Security, where he worked specifically on child exploitation cases, and he talks about the gravity of the problem globally and those who are risking a lot to try to help these kids around the world. So we give you our conversation with Glenn Devitt. Remember, we'll be back next week with an all new conversation from Andy and an agent of change.
I mean, this is bittersweet for me because this is like closing a chapter, because once I tell this story, I can't go back undercover. And so it's like, it's very hard, but like I said, I realize you can't rescue yourself out of this business. You have to have the people stand up. You have to have the people to realize that this goes on. And you have to be able to relate to people. Like, it has to be able to relate to them. It's not so far out there they can't touch it. It has to be here. It has to be close to them, so.
What was it that got you over that threshold of being willing to come forward and actually put your face on what you're doing?
Man, this fucking work will rip you apart. I've been doing it since 2014. And so, like, I've been ready to close it, like, for a long time. Just perfect timing, man. It was like I was just waiting for the right time. It was like our whole saying was about the deed, not the glory. Don't tell the fucking story, just do the work. And then it got to the point where it's like, we have to tell this story, we have to tell it right. Like, because I'm surrounded by legends that are doing legendary shit. And so, yeah, you have to give it up. And it's addicting, man. It's like fucking crack. When you rescue a kid, you're like, this is what I want to do.
Where'd you grow up?
Born and raised in Philly.
Military family history?
My two grandfathers were fucking studs during World War II. One was a POW, sniper, captured, fucking legend. The other one, he was on the Eastern European front, and then my other grandfather was in the Japanese Okinawa side of things. And
so you had heard about military service growing up, I'm assuming?
Oh man, dude, I always knew I wanted to be something with a gun in my hand. Like,
okay.
Either a cop.
So you were hooked early?
Oh, dude, from like Cowboys and Indian days. Like, you always were, I don't know, I think you have it in it. And then 9/11 happened my senior year of high school. Next fucking day, I went to the recruiter's office.
Was there a line?
Dude, it was, well, in Philly, yeah, it was like, it's such a proud fucking town, and I grew up in a shithole area. So it was like, military was a lot, either military, construction, firefighter, or police, pretty much like where I come from, a blue collar area. And my mom was like, no, I'm not signing. So I was like, okay, well, the day I graduated, I fucking signed a line. I live in Bravo, infantry. But I agreed to go off to college. I had like a bullshit scholarship. And I was doing the SMP program. So simultaneously, like your National Guard, infantry, and then you're going to be an officer, then to go to active duty.
Is that the what was it? A weekend a month, 2 weeks a year?
Yeah, it was
pipeline?
fucking like, we got activation orders, and I was like, I'm gonna fucking die. Like, we had all fraternity brothers, and then it was like dudes in their 60s. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, that are like, you're like, this guy's gonna be fucking killed. And I always knew I wanted to go active duty, and then I didn't really care to be an officer. Like, and like, Afghanistan had happened, right? And then Iraq kicked off, and I was like, I'm gonna fucking miss war. And I was like, and I wanted to be enlisted. I knew I wanted to be on the ground doing this shit. So I was like, fuck it. One day I woke up in college, and I just withdrew from all my classes, went to the recruiter. I was like, get me active duty. And so I go active duty as Lone Bravo. I wanted to have a Ranger contract. They're like, no, you're going to Fort Riley, Kansas. As a city boy, I was like, fuck that. I was like, what are your options? They're like, or you can reclass into counterintelligence. I was like, the fuck is counterintelligence? And so they kind of walked it through me. I was at one of those breaking points. So I go active duty as, infantry or counterintel. So I went the counterintel side. And I knew I wanted to get over to the special operations community at some point. So I did the counterintelligence side, and then I got stuck back with an infantry unit in Hawaii, like just bet it back as like a tactical. It was awesome. It was like worked out, great because, we were a tactical HEMA team, and I got embedded with an infantry unit. Then I did a 15-month deployment in Baghdad. We were in the battle for Sadr City, which was a fucking 2008 March. Yeah. It was absolute mayhem we were supposed to be there for 4 days, and we were there for like 36. It was fucking nuts. So I realized then I was like, this is kind of what I want to do. And then I got recruited by the unit to go there. I went to West Virginia, and I got my dick crushed. Like, I was like fighting mixed martial arts and jujitsu, and I was like, I didn't fucking train at all. I was like, I can just fucking do this. And so I was intel. So like intel dude going to operator selection. Like, I showed up with my fucking green duffel bag with 2 pair of boots and my fucking base uniform. And there's dudes like with 2 rolly bags with protein and everything. I was like, I fucked up. Like
cadre's just probably looking at you like,
oh
okay.
Yeah, regular army. They're like intel dude. They're like going through, and there's not a lot of us that's been through that. And I was like, I was the same class as Goggins.
Okay.
In 2010, and
the only difference is you graduated.
I got intel.
Yeah.
When I went through, right, and so yeah, exactly. We got crushed, and so they were like, got to like 2 days before the end one. They're like, hey, do you want to go fucking intel? We'd love to have you, be humaner. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be fucking human. Like, do you want to go to the farm? All these things. And I was like, yeah, this is fucking like a dream. I get kind of best of both worlds.
What did you like about the counter-intel human occupation?
Man, the psychology.
Just learning about people?
Like that, and like the manipulation and the mindset to go into it of like how to get somebody to risk their life, to do what you need them to do.
Do they have a structured academic approach to that and how they teach that, or is it broad concepts?
You go through some schools like the Reed Institute, like teaching you about interrogations and like the mindsets behind that. And then you do a lot of like practical exercises. And I taught recruitment after Iraq and everything like that. I was teaching like how to recruit people. And it's not bad, but you don't get good at it until you start doing it. Until you start doing source operations and a lot of it's social engineering, right? Finding everything about you and then me being who you need me to be to then get you to do what I need you to do, type thing.
Once you get a handle on that, how easy is it to kind of steer people around like a vessel?
You're good. The hard part is just shutting it off when you're not working. Right? Like, that is like, you're going through like the manipulation side of like, how do you shut this off? Like, am I doing the job? And when I did it for like 11 years. And so it becomes natural. That was in the military. Then I did it while doing the child rescue side, where it's like, then it's like full blown. You're hanging out with traffickers trying to get them to, do what you need them to do, and you be who you need them to be, and
Yeah. Looking back on it, is it easier to manipulate or drive or coerce people than you would have initially thought?
It is, especially if you use the cyber side. Like, especially if I like stalk your background, I know everything about you, and then you take that with a full plan and go into it. It's not that hard. It's not.
Were you looking at trafficking at all at that point in your life? Had it hit your radar at all?
Man, I got medically retired. So after I left there, I was teaching them at SWIC, and I didn't realize that the chiropractor was like doing everything, like annotating everything. And so you're classified and then you become unclassified. And I got fucking med boarded because I had like 7, 8 bulging discs in my neck and back. And they were like
unwillingly you got med boarded?
They were like, this is during the Obama era, and they were like downsizing. They saw my shit. So I found a flight physical, and they're like, hey, go to the ortho saw it. He's like, yeah, you're we're not going to approve your flight. So I was like, do I stay in and, fuck. I mean, I fucking felt it was in good shape. It's just obviously neck and back. It's just from jumping and all the other bullshit.
Yeah.
Your static line's the worst thing ever. And so, yeah, that's where I was like, all right, fuck it. So I was kind of like, what do I do with my life? And I literally just was like, man, war's so gray, with Iraq and everything like that, losing all the buddies that we lost. And then I was like, it's just so fucking gray. I was like, I want something that's very black and white. And I was like, what's more black and white than helping kids? And I knew I had a skill set that could do good, but like, I didn't want to go contract. I didn't want to go fight that again. So I was like, just Googled child rescue. And
like literally got in front of a computer and just Googled child rescue.
I was like, child rescue. There was like one nonprofit that popped up and they had just started too. And so reached out to them, didn't get shit. And so then SOCOM had a program for former special operations operators into support guys where they would then teach you computer forensics. And I at this point in time, I started getting into hacking, like just self-teaching myself.
Yeah, just in your off time.
It was like I had like a 3-hour class when I was at that organization. It was like I could break the internet for free and like get shit for free. So I was like fucking busting paywalls and like stealing stuff legally. They left the door open and I would go through it. So I was at that point in time. So I was like,
I don't know if those two words go together.
What's
actually?
That?
Stealing and legally?
It's true, but I was borrowing. It was borrowing.
Did you ever return the things?
No.
Okay,
yeah. So I mean, hacking's very gray and everything like that. So, and I've done forensics on cell phones. I was being Intel, so I've been doing that from 5. So they had a program where you could actually get certified, but they would teach you like the mindset behind like for 4 weeks, and then you go through your forensic training for 8 weeks. So it's called a H.E.R.O Corps, Human Exploitation Rescue Operative.
What department runs that?
So Homeland Security with SOCOM. It was, now it's open to anybody.
But they had a direct bridge between the two?
They had to connect it to it. So like SOCOM Care Coalition is like a program for people getting out.
Yep.
And so they were like, hey, you should apply for this. I did, and I was selected, and I got the call. And so then I had like a contract gig set up, or I had that, and it's like, the catch about this is in the first, since it was class 2, it was unfucking paid, right? Like, so you're going unpaid now. So you're leaving the military, you're going unpaid for a fucking year and then obviously you know how the VA works, the benefits. And I got medically retired, but it takes a while for it. So I was like, man, this transition period is going to be fucking hard. I called her out. She got on. I was like, man, sorry, I can't take it financially. I'm like, I don't think I can bridge the gap. And the second I hung up, I knew I fucked up. I literally, thank God it wasn't I called her right back immediately. It was like, I take it back. I'll be there. It was like, when you fucked up?
Yeah.
And I was like, I called her back immediately. And I was like, okay, that was a sign for it. And so went through, man. And then, man, like the first 4 weeks were nuts because they have you in this child advocacy center where you have all these kids that are walking around that have been abused and they're going through their forensic interviews. And they're like, it's fucking nuts. So you see all these kids and then they start coming in and they start showing you case studies of like things. And then they start talking about the psychology behind these people and like the damage that goes to an infant, showing the brain waves that change the baby. And like, it really just took me of like, this is our future generations and they're under attack.
Did that just knock you on your ass when you started getting exposed to that stuff?
Yeah. Oh man, it's so emotional. It's so fucking hard. Like it was, because I think we're very passionate people. Like when we hook into something, so we're hooked in fully.
Well, especially with kids too. Because I don't know about you, another one of the characteristics that I have found with our backgrounds is a disdain for bullies.
Oh.
Just a disdain for people being picked on and the willingness to step in, whether you're going to win, lose, or draw, but step in between the adversary and the person who's being bullied. I mean, I can't think it's a clunky and painting with a broom a little bit metaphor, but kids have control over almost nothing.
They're innocent.
They're innocent and they can't protect themselves. They're not equipped mentally, emotionally, or physically to protect themselves. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that one, that it knocked you on your ass, or two, that people from our background sometimes are gravitated towards that direction.
Yeah. You're helping the helpless. It's our motto in the foundation we have. It's just helping the ones that are helpless.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard me talk about Firecracker Farm and their hot salt. You probably heard other people talk about it as well. If you haven't tried it yet, let me just tell you, you're missing out on some serious flavor. Their hot salt is delicious, and it really makes pretty much anything that you put it on even more delicious. It's hot, but when you use it in moderation, it's not too hot and the flavor that it adds enhances without overpowering. It is handmade, super premium, and comes in awesome stainless steel push-button grinders like the one I have in my hand right here. You can take them anywhere. Hot sauce, if you've had this experience, can very easily overpower other flavors and always runs out quickly when it's good. Hot salt lasts and lasts. The push grinder holds over 500 plus pumps, and when you consider the refill it comes with, it's thousands of servings, and it's a great deal and a lot cheaper than the sauce. For those of you that like flavor but hesitate because it might be too hot, you can mix it with sea salt to tone it down and still enjoy the awesome flavor. In my personal experience, you can modulate how much comes out of the dispenser. You're in total control of the amount of heat you serve yourself. So if you would like to support our show and give Alex and his family business a shot, head over to firecracker.farm and use the code IRONCLAD to get a 15% discount on your first order. You will be very glad that you did. Firecracker.farm.
How was it when they started breaking down the psychological profile of the predators?
Well, because working human intelligence, psychology is everything. And you're going through it and you're just like, man, these people are fucking everywhere. So
when you say that, break that down for me.
Man, if you look at the amount of images these are children being raped, right, that are happening, the amount of downloads of people in the US, there's more downloads in a year of time than we have more people in the US. Put in context, I don't know if it's 339 million. Don't quote me on that, but it's fucking nuts. When I was at Homeland Security, we'd go and we have certain software and be like, these are all the people we can have that are actively 5 to 20 years in jail just for the images they have on their computer. And there's thousands of them in your city. You're you can actively, and you look at people they're just downloading, it's called child sexual abuse material, CSAM right now. It used to be called child pornography, and now they changed the name for it. And the amount of people that are downloading, you're fuck. And every one of them could be arrested. Every one of them could be minimum 5 years in jail. Depending on
just for possession of the images?
Just for possession. And these are fucking some of the worst shit you've ever seen in your fucking life. And they have one. And so if you look at it, and the best way to say it is if I'm watching porn and I'm watching blondes, everything like that, I'm gonna go out to the bar. Probably my preference is blondes, and I'm eventually gonna step that boundary. Eventually you'll try and you'll get that. And with they embed themselves around children. You'll see certain companies or nonprofits, and they're there because that's what they're doing. They're doing learning the psychology behind them and then understanding how they manipulate. They groom these children. They are sometimes your relatives. They are it's not stranger danger for the most part. So yeah, you have when we going through that, it's the psychology was insane. Just to see the effects on the children when I was fuck man, we have to do something. And so then you go through your forensic schools, and then that's I'll never forget the day. There's this guy, Jim Cole, he's a fucking legend in Homeland Security. And he was the one teaching the class. He's the first one that showed me actually, they were hey, they're gonna show you now a child that's been raped. It's being raped. And so you have to sit there and watch it.
Physical act, you have to sit there and watch it.
Mm-hmm. You have to listen to it. The fucking sounds just fucking destroy you. And right there, I was just if you could just fucking a nuke going off my body where I was I want to murder this individual. You're obviously you can't. You have to, what my foundation is, we are a find, fix asset for law enforcement, right? They have the job to do the thing. And at this point in time, I was no, now I'm going to be a forensics. I'm going to be doing the job. And they showed me that, and I won't ever forget it because I was and then after you graduate from that, man, they gave us this little award, and one of those kids, they were in that center, they had a little handprint, and it was saying thanks, thank you, for what you're doing. And we have this, on my wall, I have this little handprint of this little kid, and I know that kid was abused. So it's that motivation that you have. Yeah, it's a fucking dark world. But then, yeah, you start doing this job, man, and every fucking day, you're working in these cases. I'm talking sometimes 25 fucking terabytes of fucking child images. And you have to go through, they have great tools out there that do a better job if it's duplicated, then it hashed through the technologies that they have, and you don't have to watch it. But there's so many, you have to, if the video changes a little bit, you have to watch it. You have to go through it, or the homemade shit.
How are they monitoring the people who they are tasking to watch this stuff? The moral injury and burden of somebody being forced to watch what you're describing, like that's going to leave far more than a fingerprint on you. Are they keeping tabs on the people that they are teaching to do this job?
No, like if you're working in the forensic side, or if you're like, they're like, oh, you can get off and you can work white collar. Like, no, the fuck you can't. No, you can't. Like, you can, all this is child crimes. Really, like, there is some fucking white collar, like, oh, you can do it. Like, no, you can't. Because there's so few working the forensic side. Nobody wants to do this job. And the ones that are sacrificing are the ones that are stepping into the fire. Like these law enforcement, like the ICAC, which is like in most states, like they do such a great job.
The Internet Crimes Against Children.
Yeah, like they're a great organization that do a lot of funding for it. So they take brother cops and do it. But looking like I'm sure in this town, like there's probably like 1 to fucking 3 dudes or men or women, I say dudes, but working this, they probably don't have the forensic training, right? So they're not fully caught up on it. You know, they're in it and they'll do it for a little bit, but then eventually like it takes a fucking lot, like just to keep doing this in and out every fucking day. And these law enforcement are rescuing in their neighborhood and they're fucking where they live, you know, and they're seeing all this stuff. And yeah, it's a special breed, but they say that, yeah, you can get off it, but you can't. Like they offered me at the end of my program, they offered me a direct hire to a special agent. Like I was fucking killing it. And they were like, hey, well, usually you're supposed to go in to be a computer forensic analyst. But then they were like, because I was like, I don't want to, I want to be a fucking agent. So they're like, yeah, well, actually from DC was like, yeah, we'll make you a fucking direct hire special agent. I was like, obviously that takes time. And I spent 3 months out of it. And I was just like, I can't, like, you know what I mean? Like, and actually the HSI agents, their Homeland Security investigation, hands down, I will say is probably one of the best in child crimes. It's like the best kept secret in US government of all the child crime cases that they work. And a lot of the agents are like, Glenn, go hunt. You know what I mean? Like, go do your thing, man. They're like, you'll be able to do so much more outside the government than with the government. And
is that what got you to leave?
I was transitioning out, and obviously from that time, you have that gap between they were like, you can be a special agent, can it? Because that's always I wanted to do. I was like, I just want to fucking hunt these guys. And so I was like, all right, I'll go out. And then I found that original nonprofit I applied for. They came back during that time and were like, hey, we want to work together with my for-profit enterprise. So I had like I got into hacking. I actually got really good at hacking. So I was teaching at Black Hats, which is like a top hacking course. During that period of time while I was doing forensic, I was also learning hacking and going through it. So then I was training government agencies while then I had a contract with this nonprofit. And then that first year in 2016, I think it was, I worked undercover in 6+ countries. But like at first I was just a cyber guy. And I realized quickly that I'm working with a fucking bunch of amateurs. And they were great people, man. They were in the fight. But from the organizations that we come from, I'm like, there's some top talent out there that are not in this fight. And the first year I was like, this is fucking suspect. Like I'm in Haiti, like working. I'm like, these dudes, I'm gonna get fucking killed if I keep this mentality. So I was like, I gotta be able to recruit guys from my past organization to come into the fight. And so, yeah, after that first year, then I was like, I want to start my own nonprofit. I was like, I hate nonprofits, so let me start one. You know, like I hated the way they were raising money. I hated like how they were showing all their tactics. I was like, I want a nonprofit like our organizations, like a tier 1 unit where we don't talk about it. We're not there, you know. We're just there just doing the job and giving all the credit to law enforcement for it. And so that's kind of how my foundation started. I called my work wife, Jameson. He is like, we're yin and yang. I'm fucking controlled chaos, and he is like very much order. He's a former Green Beret. We met together teaching surveillance, and so we just fucking connected. And so we do everything together. For-profit companies, nonprofits. It's like, he's like a brother from another mother. And I was like, hey, I want to do this, but I was like, I fucking suck at like organizational, and I'm pretty much unemployable. I'm good at what I know I'm good at. And so came together and we started our foundation. We're like, we don't know how we're gonna do this. We didn't know shit about nonprofit work, like structure, and we put it together.
What year did you guys form it?
So we applied in 16, but it took us like 8 months, I think, to get approval.
Yeah, the 501c3 pipeline is not quick.
No, it isn't. Well, especially with the work we were trying to do and like how we had it written up of like doing child rescue. And it's more of like the way we do it is you have to train them. That's the biggest thing. I wanted to take a tier 1 capability and bring it to a child crimes fight, right? And so training law enforcement, then assisting on cases, and then working undercover, right? Like if you go to any country in South America or in Thailand, like, law enforcement cannot play undercover because all the tourists are the ones the kids.
That makes sense. I hadn't thought about it.
You know, like, so they need gringos to it. And like, I have guys that are in their 70s that like 31 plus years at the fucking agency, all the way down to guys that have never worked in the military. You know, like, you have that huge balance of it. And so, you know, like, because even like a shooter from a tier 1 organization, like, the reason why they work well is because we're not shooting anybody. We're not kicking in fucking doors. No, it's just that there is no in that organization. Like, where you come from, like, you just get the fucking job done.
Yeah.
Right? And so every one of us, and we have a core team of like 5 of us, and then we have like a Rolodex like 25 you bring in. And like that core team of 5 of us, is every one of us can do each other's jobs, but then we can also, like, we're usually an expert on a few of the things and kind of balance each other.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to get into elite shape, or perhaps just make improvements to your current level of fitness, check out the Mountain Tough digital training program. You can try it for free for 14 days, and you can see the results for yourself. The app allows users to train wherever they are with minimal equipment requirements, whether you're in the gym or you're outdoors or you're at home. Users can access top-tier programming that fits into their lifestyle. The Mountain Tough app offers expertly designed progressive training plans that guide users from start to finish. These plans are tailored to build resilience, strength, and endurance over time, preventing burnout and injury. The app features self-guided and follow-along coaching videos, allowing users to be coached through every workout step by step. This helps to ensure proper form, motivation, and intensity, regardless of the user's fitness level. The Mountain Tough app delivers training programs built for the unique physical demands of mountain athletes, including hunters, tactical professionals, and outdoor adventurers. The programs themselves are designed by seasoned strength and conditioning experts, elite athletes, and military veterans. Start your 14-day free trial today and check out the results for yourself. And be sure to use the offer code CHANGEAGENTS, and I'm looking at it as one word, at signup, and you can get 40% off your annual subscription. Remember, use the offer code CHANGEAGENTS at checkout.
How do you prep the people that you're bringing into this to what they're about to be exposed to?
I tell them, I was like, it will be the hardest thing you've ever done. And like, these guys have everything from like fucking 8 to 17 deployments, you know, like at your level. And I was like, this will probably be one of the hardest things you've done, is because you can't kill anybody. You have to stay within law, right? You are a fine fixed asset. You are beholden to the government you're working with. But I was like, it will be the most rewarding thing you've ever fucking done. I will promise you that. The second you fucking pull a kid out and they start crying and then you start crying, like, you know what I mean? Like that. Yeah, there's nothing better. And there's nothing greater you could do. If you were like, and there is some risk, but like, we don't have guns. You know what I mean? Like, we got a knife here and there, but you have to worry about criminal elements, but like, God forbid something happened. How rewarding is that for your kids to know that you're helping other kids? I was like, so it will be the most rewarding fucking thing you've ever done.
I feel like, though, it might be one of the most frustrating things they've ever tried to do as well.
I tell them that all the time. You're like, why can't we just kill this guy? I'm like, no, we can't kill anybody. You know what I mean? Like, we wouldn't, you don't cross that path, but like, they're like, problem solved. You know, like, I'm like, it's not solved, right? Like, and I think that's one of the reasons, like I said, I'm here today, is because we can't rescue our way out of this. You know, like, rescuing is so important as you're pulling the kid, and it's a sexy thing that goes into it. Taking out a trafficker, force multiplying, because right then you take down the network, another guy's gonna pop back up for sure. But yeah, it is super frustrating. Like you dealing with law enforcement. It's like the Bangladesh side of rescue. We talk about that. Like you're dealing with corrupt, law enforcement. You're dealing with shit situations, refugees, and like you see like fucking when you're that poor and that low, like parents selling their kids into it, and then you're trying to make a difference. But you have to try to create. One of our main focus is create fear, right? With fear comes change, and so that's what we try to do. You try to make as much fear as you can. And how do you make fear? Well, if they know they can be arrested, right? If they know potentially that John is actually an agent, right? There's fear, right? The rescuing of the children. right? Like goes into it. But then changing laws, like we go into some places and we have to learn the laws of that whole region, right? And you find out like how the tourists, how the people abusing the children are manipulating the law. And then we have to try to change that law, right?
What kind of differences do you see between overseas and the United States?
Man, like trafficking exists and everything, everywhere you go. Trafficking is more in your face when you go to these third world countries where you can actually like see young girls and for it. But in the US, it's the amount of child crimes and consumption. US is one of the largest consumption of child sexual abuse material, CSAM, right? Like they're consuming it, they're doing it. Kids are being on a daily. You know, I think there's so many different aspects of children, right? Whether it's the trafficking, whether it's the abuse of them. And it's just so fucking underfunded everywhere. Like, you know, I listened to one of your podcasts, Nick he quoted, like use this quote all the time. It's like, in the child crimes fight in the US, do you know who the leading agency is? Child crimes and trafficking, like for the most part, but child crimes,
No.
It's a fucking nonprofit. National Center for Missing and Exploited Children is a nonprofit, and it's a great nonprofit. I fucking love that organization, but it's a nonprofit that is the ultimate, like, law enforcement basically have to reach up to them, and they control all the information about child crimes and they pass it down. Why the fuck do we have a DEA, right? We're still focused on the war on fucking drugs, but do you know why? Right? It's because asset seizures. When you have a drug case, you seize the house, you seize the fucking car, you seize everything. You get all that money for your overtime budget.
Yeah, it goes
right?
a lot of the time goes back
when
to the
there's a child
municipality.
crimes case, guess what? You can't take the house because the child's there. So then you have this, like, why aren't we spending more money? Like, we just sent another $500 million to Ukraine, and like, I'm not getting in that conflict, but we sent $500 million there. Could you imagine what $500 million would do in the U.S. for fighting child crimes? Like, I was in North Carolina, and like, I had an office there at one point, and I had like a targeting center where law enforcement could just like reach out to me around the world if like needing help cyber. We had a team doing it. And I had North Carolina, everybody but the FBI there. And there was like 13 agents, like SBI, HSI, locals, everything like that. It's like 13 people. Like when I was at HSI Charlotte, we had 13 people working MS-13. Like where the fuck is the priority at? You know, there's nobody that is like fucking championing it in politics. There's nobody that's like, I'm gonna die on this sword.
Why do you think that is?
I think what it is, it boils down to is it's fucking tough. Like people are like great at just putting these blinders on. We're like, it's not affecting me. I don't want to know about it. Like that doesn't exist out there because it will ruin you. So many people are so afraid to step into that fire and they just don't prioritize or they don't fully know until it happens to them, until they know somebody. And then they get involved in it and then they know.
Yeah, then the blinders get ripped off and you can't help but see it.
You can't help it but see it. So it's a motherfucker. But it's like I said, it's why I agreed to come on to this podcast. It's just like, we have to get out there. We have to bring awareness. We have to do it in a way where people can consume it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. I have spoken very openly and honestly about my journey through life, and that has included very deep and intensive bouts of therapy. I have found immense value at a bare minimum by having an objective third party help me walk through the shadows that I have had to walk through in my life and that we all are going to have to walk through independently, but hopefully with a tribe. For those of you who are hearing me talk about therapy right now, or perhaps you feel like you're alone and you don't know where to turn, I'm going to suggest to you BetterHelp. It is fully online. It is affordable and it's convenient, and it is serving over 5 million people worldwide. It allows you to access a diverse network of more than 30,000 credentialed therapists with a wide range of specialties. You can easily switch therapists at any time with no extra cost. If you don't click with the person you're first talking to, don't give up on the therapy. Find somebody that you can click and connect with that understands you. Do not give up on yourself. You may have 1 or 2 or 3 bad experiences. Do not quit on yourself. You're not alone in this life. And there are people out there who would like nothing more than to help you fill up those blank pages with an amazing story. I suggest starting BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/change today to get 10% off your first month. That is BetterHelp, betterhelp.com/change.
What's the hardest thing you've had to deal with?
mental health. You know what I mean? Like, that's the fucking, that is the hardest thing. It's like keeping it the fucking together, right? Like, I'm nice to moth to the flame, right? It's eventually when you deal with that much darkness, it consumes you, right? And it's really hard to make sure you stay on that side of good, right? And yeah, it's a pound of flesh. When you do this work, you're giving up a fucking pound of flesh. There's no, you leave a little bit of yourself behind every fucking time. And like going back from like working undercover and then going back and being a father, right? Like you're going back between like, cause to do a rescue and to work undercover, you have to act like them. You have to drink with traffickers. You're reading through all the shit on the internet of like how they operate, how they talk, how they, work. It's like, it fucking consumes you. And that's like, you change these identities. But I guess working intel, what really helped me was like, you are split personalities, like you have to be able to balance it. So I think that's one of the hardest parts is the mental health, like keeping it the fucking together.
Help me paint a picture for people either watching or listening of how bad it can get.
For
how deep and dark can the environment that you are working in get? Like, what's the worst that you've seen?
Man. It was Thailand, 2016. I was working with another nonprofit at the time, and the team leader was there, and I'm just starting out with this undercover shit. And I was like, all right, he's like, my girlfriend's in town, so he's like, I'm gonna go spend time with her. But I was like, I'm in fucking Thailand, I'm away from my fucking kids. I'm like, I'm gonna work. And I went out by myself, and I started looking, it was like these little peddling, trafficking kids, the begging kids for it. And I was like, just a little young girl working that. And I was like, I'm just gonna fucking act like I'm drunk. And I went to 7-Eleven and it's like 2 a.m. I was like, fucking stumbling around, sure as shit, taxi pulls up. He's like, yeah, I'll take you somewhere. And like, kind of long story short, he takes me one place. I'm not young enough. It's like, you're not going in like, I want to rape a kid. You know what I mean? Like you have to, work it. And I was like, finally, he's like at 3 a.m.
It'd be a little on the nose.
Exactly. And like they get the fucking point. And then he takes me like 10 minutes outside Bangkok. Then it's 20 minutes outside Bangkok. And then all of a sudden, like he takes me to this place and it's like a fucking steakhouse. I'm like, the fuck is this? And like, there's the little lights on and it's like, I don't know if he's fucking triad or something, comes fucking walking out. He's a pretty big dude and he's fully tatted up. He's black pants, black jeans, black boots. And I'm like, okay, it's about getting serious. Like it takes me inside and like in the corner there's like these 3 ladies, like these nice outfits, and they're like counting money under the table. It's like something out of a fucking movie. And then like a Papa San comes down, like versus like a Mama San, like a guy's running it. So he takes me upstairs, and there's some young girls, but they're Asians. It's tough because I'm like, I don't know, like 12 to 15. I'm seeing, and I see a young girl with braces, and I was like, yeah, I'll take that one. And they're like, all right, we'll take you back to your hotel room. I was like, no, like, do you have anywhere I can go? And they're like, oh yeah, we have a place for you. And so then they takes me to get escorted by the dude and the girl, and they take me to like this fucking carport. And these big metal doors, and this door opens up and it's a fucking sex room. Like and then they threw some condoms in and shut the door. And I'm like, oh shit, like this escalated quickly. And I'm just collecting intel. So I started talking to her and we're using my phone. You don't know if you're being monitored like that, so we're just laying in bed, like sitting there and we're texting back and forth. And she's like, yeah, they kidnapped me from fucking Cambodia. She showed me her tattoo, kind of told her a story, just back to translation. I was like, look, I'll be there tomorrow. Like, I will come back. She's like, no, you won't. It's like, everyone says that, and like, nobody does. And I'm like, no, I will be here, I promise. I give you my word. And then pass the information, and then nothing was done. And so, like, rescuing kids, the ones you leave behind are the fucking hardest ones. That's the ones that really fuck you up.
How many situations like the one that you just described do you think are happening every single day?
Of the girls being trafficked and kidnapped? And like
the sex dungeon. Like,
it exists out there. And usually what those places are local spots. It's usually like the local fucking spots. And there's it's the people in that country that are doing it. And but like the Royal Thai police are fucking phenomenal. Like they care. They do a great fucking job. That wasn't their fault. This was the nonprofit's fault I was working with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they didn't fucking pass the information like they were supposed to. And so yeah, they exist. They're out there, man. There's kids in cages. When I was in Bangladesh doing that, like those girls were being held in cages. You know, like it's out there. It exists.
Have you ever heard anything like that here in the U.S.?
You hear about it, you know, but like from the trafficking I've worked in the U.S., like with law enforcement, it's more just right in your face. Like it's, you know, like they get these girls hooked on drugs. You know, then they put them out there, they do it, and they take all their money from them. And so, yeah, it exists. But I just, you know, the cages side and things like that, it's, when you, in the US, like, yeah, like it does exist, but I just don't know, you know, fully. Like law enforcement do a great job with those like severe things. Like they do a great job at that, of working it. But when you go into third world countries, like they're just overloaded. Like the amount of trafficking and like, oh.
If that was, on the lower end of the spectrum, or as bad as it can get, what's been the most rewarding thing you've encountered?
I would probably say the Bangladesh rescue. So that's a kind of funny how it started. So I had worked this case with a team from DARPA, worst pedophile in UK history. You know, 5 years he was wanted. Homeland Security brought me in, and then 3 months later he was captured. We don't know what we did or what we provided. If we had something, we just provided information, he was captured. But I had worked with this team from DARPA. They were working on a special project. Pretty sure our project name's classified, but it doesn't matter. So they call me up and they're like, hey, BBC World News, we found some stuff in the dark web. They want to see if somebody could go on the ground and bang it. They're like, we can't tell you where it is. Just fly up to DC. It's like, I'm going up there on a Friday. Well, that Thursday, like, I got like an entrepreneur, because it was the for-profit side of things, award. And the organization's like, hey, could you take this fucking couple out there in town? I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll take them out, I'll show them Charlotte. Well, we go out there, this like woman gets like sexually assaulted. So the guy's about to get in a fight. And so I'm breaking it up. And this dude just fucking literally goes down the pipe and fucking blasts me in the face. I'm like, why the fuck did you just punch me, you know, for it? So now I have this fucking massive shiner. Like, fucking next day I'm flying to fucking meet at the DARPA fucking headquarters, and like I have this fucking the BBC World News, and I got this fucking now massive. I mean, my face is like purple, and you know what I mean. Like, but he punched like a bitch, so it was like, I'm like fuck. So they go out, so I walk in the room and I got this shiner. I'm like, and they want me to go undercover. I'm like, maybe I fit the part now for it. And so then they show me the shit he says online. And this guy was talking about like, hey, just don't have sex with kids. Bring your own kid home. This is how you get your kid from a refugee camp and bring them back to the U.S. And he gave a very detailed rat line. And they're going through and they're like,
where is this information posted?
This is like on the dark web. This is the program that they did. They were doing a good job. I'll just say, I'll leave that out. I don't want to give too much of their tactics. So we had it, this mess stuff wasn't supposed to be saved, but we had it saved. And so they're like, hey, do you want to go to Bangladesh? And like at that point in time, they could have said North Korea. And like, I'm going to go.
100%.
Because I have this black eye. They fucking flew all the way out there. And they're like, Bangladesh. And they're like, all right, fucking like what? I don't know. Like, I'm going to go as a singleton with what BBC represented. So they put me on a J visa. And like when they said Bangladesh, I was like, I don't even know where fuck Bangladesh is. You know, like you think I would have done a little bit more research before agreeing to this. And it's 1 million Muslim refugees that are there that are, they're saying being trafficked from a refugee camp. So I'm like, let's go. Like, and so they're like, all right, 2 weeks. Let's do this. And so I went there with the BBC. They put me as a journalist. So Bangladesh police don't know. Like their government doesn't know that I'm working undercover. U.S. government, I'm not really talking or dealing with them because it didn't matter. I told the RSO that I was in country. And yeah, we just started walking through the camps, like flying in. And so I was wanting to try to see is like, there's two ways to look at it. Like, can I watch them do it? Like trafficking. And like the first day I realized it's a complete shit show. Like it's just fucking mayhem. We're just walking through these refugee camps, you know, and you see poverty at a whole different level when you've been to a refugee camp, especially that one.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we did that. Within a few days, it was like, okay, we interviewed 2 girls. So Sam interviewed the 2 girls, found out how they were trafficked. And they were young, they were like 13 to 15-year-old girls. They usually have like a 3-month time window. So they get raped and abused in 3 months in these hotel rooms and they get brought back or killed. And so it wasn't too hard. We had to fix it and find us a trafficker that could get us girls. And worked it. So I had to collect all this information, right? And then I went to all the law enforcement agency, police stations around there. And I asked them, like, hey, show me all the traffickers you arrested. We're doing a story. And then like, all the girls were like 12 to 15 that were being arrested, you know? So it's an Islamic country. We're dealing with a huge refugee crisis. And yeah, it was like, damn, okay, this is a fucking tough situation. I had to have a really lock solid case. So then I'm dealing with the trafficker and everything like that. And I'm through my fixer, I'm getting information, and I was able to have him do a certain technique where I saved the XF data and metadata from a picture that I could forensically prove that these girls are actually in his control. Because the worst thing, I could go in any fucking country and I can give $2,000 to any fucking taxi cab driver and they'll get me a fucking kid. Now, whether that fucking child's trafficked, you know, you don't know. So you have to play this thing between creating a demand and actually like in control, but you can do that through digital means. And so I had this exit data, and I could have had, if he had these location services turned on, I could have had it lat long, 10-digit grid exactly where these girls are being held. And so that goes down, so we get the whole fucking case, and then we go to the police, we show them what they have, and they're like, no, we're not doing it. We're like, okay, well, then we had to go up to DACA, and finally, so like 8 days passed, like doing all this shit. And then finally, they're like, okay, we'll do it. So I have like this hotel room set up like fucking Chris Hansen to Catch a Predator. You know what I mean? Like Trevor's gonna go through security and like he'll be patted down and like take all the risk out of it, have law enforcement there. And then law enforcement comes up to like, we can't do this. That's one of our sources. I was like, motherfuckers. So like, no, like we're fucking doing it. You just said it on camera, dickhead. You know what I mean? Like you're doing this fucking operation. So like I got a pissing match with this guy. He's like, fine, we'll do it. Trafficker calls me back like 10 minutes later. He's like, yeah, I'm not coming there. I'll meet you out front. So now I'm like, damn, am I being set up? You know what I mean? Like, how's this fucking working? So we go, I'm like, fuck it. I'll do it on the beach. And me and my interp go down there and like they send a fucking scout out, a recon dude. And like I see a red hoodie and when I'm all mic'd up and all camera, like this is all recorded and on YouTube. And sure as shit, that red hoodie, I'm like, yo, 8 o'clock red hoodie's coming up. And this is kind of like, where we have the biggest threat we have is because we have money on us, criminal enterprises, you know what I mean? I'm staged out front. Like that's kind of where the risk comes. For the most part, this is, if you do it right, you mitigate a lot of the risk. So sure shit, that red hoodie dude that I'm like, comes up, he's like, hey, call me up there. And it's like all dark. I'm like, fuck that, I'm not going. And so then the driver brings the girls down, pull the girls out, and like it just works smoothly. You know what I mean? So like between that 10 minutes window, you had setting up like 8 police officers in the crowd, getting everything, and it kind of all worked fucking out. For it, so. And
this was the UK guy?
What's that? No, this was to prove that girls are being trafficked from the Rohingya refugee camp.
Okay.
This is the first rescue of like an American buying children from a refugee camp for it. And so that was to make a statement and create the fear that like, hey, you know, this is happening. So it was like from the internet to there. Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, a refugee camp with all that chaos, it'd be the perfect place to do it in plain sight.
People embed themselves in these nonprofits. You know what I mean? Like this guy gave the recipe online of like, this is how you do it. We had to try to see if it's possible. And it was. I was able to buy my own kid, you know, for the night. So there was 2 of them we pulled out. It was a 15-year-old and a 21-year-old. And the 15-year-old one was in tears when I first grabbed her, you know what I mean, up in the room and everything like that. But then the 21-year-old was like, something's up. And then the 50-year-old one kind of changed all of a sudden. She wasn't as happy. You know, we're eating lunch and eat dinner and everything like that. And then the 21-year-old's texting her phone. So we grab her phone, look at it, and sure she was a trafficker herself.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So then we had to get her fucking arrested. And yeah, she was like kicking out the windshield, like the fucking BBC's van. And we're like calling the cops to get them back down here. Yeah, she was a fucking bitch.
What does life look like for the kids that you rescue?
So you can't do anything. You can't do a single rescue without aftercare. There's so many great nonprofits out there that take these women and children, young boys, and then they give them a new life. And so we usually find in a country, we find that nonprofit that's doing that type of work, and we partner with them beforehand. You know what I mean? Because you just don't want to throw them back into shit. You want to try to give them a new life. Yeah.
Hey, Mike Baker here, host of the President's Daily Brief podcast, former CIA operations guy, and a big fan of Ironclad podcasts and productions. The folks at Ironclad have graciously given me a moment to tell you about an epic trek taking place in January, this month, and well into February, in order to raise awareness and funds for the UK Special Forces Benevolent Fund. Now, the Benevolent Fund is focused on the needs and well-being of the United Kingdom's military and veterans. It's a great cause with a lot of work to do. To raise awareness for the fund, 5 of us from the UK's Special Forces Club, along with 10 camels and an amazing support team, set off in early January to retrace the 700-mile grueling route taken by Lawrence of Arabia and a small Arab army back in 1917 to go from Al-Waj in the Saudi Kingdom to Aqaba in Jordan. Assuming nothing goes sideways, we expect to ride into Aqaba on 7 February. If you'd like to learn more, please check out the fund's website at www.sfcbf.org. Also, you can get updates on the Trek by following the Trek's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn sites. Just search SFCBF Trek. And thank you again to Ironclad for their support.
If you were king for a day and you could grab people's attention for whatever amount of attention span people have at this point in time,
Right.
what would you tell them to get them to pay more attention, to get them involved more?
Stop making fucking excuses. You can help out. You can be a part of this, you know? Like, your life is crazy, it is busy, but you can get involved in any way. Like, great, there's the rescue side of things, or is either financially giving to nonprofits. There's a lot of great nonprofits out there in the US. Like, call them up and volunteer. Just be a part of it. Like, bully your way. That's what I did. I literally was like, whatever, I'll sweep fucking floors. Once I got my fucking foot in the door, then I kicked the door. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You can just slowly get in, you can build it in a relatively short period of time. And I promise you, it would be the most rewarding thing. You know, is helping a child out in any way, you know, in any way you can do it.
Do you believe it's a solvable problem?
I think if the people stood up and the people actually wanted change, then change happens, you know? So this isn't gonna come from a politician, you know, it's gonna take the people say we had enough. And that's where things change. That's where you say that this is what I wanna do. More money needs to go into rescuing children. More money needs to go into to these agencies that are helping these children. Because look, after a child is abused, like, what do they do for society? They're fucking damaged.
Yeah.
You know, we've shown that. Yeah, they can come better. They can start to do better. But in reality, we know that all the mental health issues that they go through now from that, like it's so much is done to that. And we have to, I think, as for me, we don't do a lot of human trafficking side of things. We do a lot of child trafficking or child crimes, is because, like, I think a lot of the women and men that are in that trafficking world that are older, that are hooked on drugs, most likely were raped as a child. They've come from a broken home. They were abused. And so getting to the root of it.
Talking with Nick and Cara about the trafficking, they said that the most difficult ones are the ones that started off on the abuse side. And for whatever, I mean, I don't have a great understanding of psychology, but for whatever reason, something snapped or broke or realigned, and then they went from being abused to the abuser, and were somehow able to justify that in their head, which is something I still can't wrap my own personal thoughts around. But they are the ones that they described as being absolutely the most vicious and actually the hardest to catch.
They are. You see that more often than not, right? That they were abused at some point in time. And the psychology behind it that goes into it, because it's not just the rape that happens. It's not like a one-time thing. It's a grooming of these children. Your young son, daughter, like, they're groomed and manipulated to be someone that they love and appreciative, and then they rape them. And they usually consent to it. But you can't consent if you're a child.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You know what I mean? And so, yeah, it's fucking crazy. But I'll tell you what, though, like, why the fuck is it only, if you rape a child, whatever, 10 fucking 20 years, whatever, it should be life in prison. You just ruined their life. You know, like, why aren't more governors saying, I'm putting my foot down here? You know, if you have this.
Personally, I think it should go beyond life in prison, but I'm not a politician.
I would
nor do I intend to run for office, nor do I think that would be a campaign slogan that I think would catch on. But
I mean, I would run on it too. I would run for governor of North Carolina and be like, death sentence. You know, like, I don't, if you can prove without a doubt that you raped a child,
yeah,
you ruined their fucking life. You took their life and their innocence. Why should you fucking be allowed in the streets? If you can prove without a reasonable doubt, why should you be able to walk the streets? Which is crazy part in these child material, if they haven't had a full hands-on experience, these child crimes, they walk the street for the fucking next year until the forensics is done.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
It's fucking crazy. Now imagine that these individuals are now facing, as a chomo, child molester, they call them in prison, right? 5 to 20 years in jail. And then there's a good chance that they're still walking the streets while all their forensics being done. If the judge sees them not as a threat, it's on the judge's hand. Yeah. Right? It sees them not as a threat. And some judges, they're like, it doesn't matter that he had innocent, child being material, like, he's fine. He's only going to get a few years. And they walk the fucking streets, as a registered sex offender.
What should parents be on the lookout for?
Be careful who you trust, because we know that it happens from people right? Talk to your children. Don't be afraid to have the tough conversations, like I do. Like that case in the UK, this individual was manipulating them, getting them to do images, acting as somebody, and he had 4 girls try killing himself, and he kept on going. Right? He would manipulate like a fucking evil, mine was his fucking name, sadistic dude, right? And if any one of those girls would have just had somebody for the parents to talk to them and tell them, like I tell my daughters, they're never too young. Like be front, like, hey, my daughter wants Snapchat right now. And I'm like, you're 13. You have to understand, like, my fear is not to keep you limited from it. My fear is like, I've read every fucking email. I've read these girls saying that they had no help and they were afraid. And this guy was blackmailed. And if they did not do what he said, he would email and text the parents, the images, the family. Like the most sadistic fucking things out there. These people exist and they're around us. You can look up this case.
Yeah.
It's fucking tragic.
What percentage of this recruiting is happening just through the devices we carry in our pockets all
everything. Day? It's so many children are being manipulated.
What do you wish people knew that you think they are unaware of about what you do?
That's a good question. Just help out, like be aware that this is everywhere. It will get real if it happens to you. And you hope to, when I was going through forensic school, like turns out like my ex's like good friend's husband was then arrested for child material. And my kids were at his house at one point. While I'm going through this fucking forensic school, I'm about to lose my fucking mind. And I was like, Jesus, hopefully like they weren't abused. Hopefully they weren't one of the victims. And it's like, when it gets real, when it starts touching you, you're close to home, then you're like, I want to do something about it. And so I think don't wait until then, like get involved in any which way you can. Maybe some younger generations get into the law enforcement side of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where, if people are interested in what we've been talking about, where can they find you? Where can they help what you have going on?
FoundationSentinel.org is our website. They go to info@FoundationSentinel.org if they have questions. It's a mailbox to get involved. There's organizations like Operation Light Shine that are here in the U.S. The Tim Tebow Foundation, like that organization does amazing work. With us. So we have some partners in here that work in the U.S. We do a lot of international, but you tell us where you want to get involved at, like we'll gladly try to help you. Yeah.
What do you want to close with?
It's one I appreciate you having me out here. I think, like we said, like we're not going to rescue our way out of this. I think that the people need to stand up. They need to get involved. They have to talk to their politicians. I think we need an administration in the U.S. that focuses on children's safety, real children's safety. Why are we spending so much money internationally when we're not taking care of our home front? 500 mil or whatever we could put into this fight is needed.
Yeah. How's your faith in humanity?
Man.
Are you a glass half full or a glass half empty guy?
Oh, half full for sure, man.
Even after everything you've been exposed to?
Yeah, for sure. Like I think the more people in this fight, the more we grow. Eventually it could change. The people are the ones that can make the change.
Well, it starts with them being aware of what the problem is.
Correct. Yeah. Uniting and standing up. Coming together to really make a difference. I think we have to change the laws in the U.S. We have to change the funding for this fight. Internationally, like helping out these countries, it's an onslaught of like people from the U.S. traveling, people from Europe traveling these foreign countries and raping these children. And then they're coming back and they're in the society here. You know, you don't think that they're going to do it here. They just don't have the opportunity. It's not as easy.
Well, I think in addition to changing the funding and changing the laws, we have to change the way that we talk about it. And by that, I mean, it needs to be elevated in the conversation and not forgotten about. I mean, again, going all the way back to what we talked about in the beginning, kids are helpless.
Yeah.
You know, like they're not emotionally equipped, mentally equipped, physically equipped, and they're the most vulnerable people we have in our society, and they're also the next generations. Like, why would we not make them the absolute pinnacle of what it is that we're paying attention to?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you, you know, for it. So I would say one last thing is just like, give a shout out to, you know, there's not one person in this fight. Like, I'm surrounded by a whole bunch of legends. I think some of the guys and girls from our community need to do more. You know, they can take those skill sets from war and the experience we have as wars are dying down and getting in this fight.
Yeah.
Reach out. We need more people in the fight. There's a time shelf of how long people can do this work. And so,
I think some of that is built around the fact they just don't know.
yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I had no, like we were talking about before we started recording, in my conversations with Deliver Fund, they, you know, I assumed that trafficking, when the term trafficking was used, was sexual in nature only. And there is a large portion of that. I didn't realize, you know, unskilled laborers, even skilled laborers, there is the sexual aspect to it, but you know, they were giving me examples from hotel cleaning, like any type where there's a go-between that is controlling a large group of people or manipulating them in some way underneath. I had no idea that the problem was as big as it was. And growing up in California where I did, I probably saw it every single day, and it was invisible. I didn't start paying attention to it, and I'm ashamed to admit this, until much later in life, because I just didn't know. And I think that's probably the case with a lot of the people that we used to work with and for. I mean, think about how good they are at their job. If you can give them the 2 Fs, right? The find, fix, they live to finish. So you're going to have to get over that hurdle, like take it easy, buddy.
Yeah.
You know, leave the gun in the safe.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, exactly.
I have another target for you that you can be, honestly, probably more passionate about than some of the ideological people that we were going over or going after overseas.
Yeah, I agree. There's so many people that have so many skill sets they've learned from the government, and getting into this work, and like we said, you don't have to be poor to do nonprofit work. Like, you can still do this work. You're not too busy, right? It's just time management. If you're going to do this, start getting involved, and then eventually it could be a full-time position, you know?
I think awareness is a huge component of it. So thank you for taking the time to come out, man.
Dude, thank you so much for having me out here. So.
Yeah, right on.
All right, everyone, that'll do it for this episode of Change Agents, presented by Firecracker Farm, an IRONCLAD original. As always, we'll be back next week with a brand new episode. And remember, don't forget to check out cafirefoundation.org to find out how you can help firefighters and their families in Southern California. All right, everyone, we'll see you next time.
IRONCLAD creates premium content no matter the environment. From extreme elements to unforgiving terrain, we thrive on crafting content that captures the essence of your brand in the most challenging conditions. Bring your brand story to life, ensuring your message leaves an impact. Ready to elevate your vision? Connect with us today at ironcladagency.com.